Okay, getting the frame right. So this is the issue of being tall and working with a tripod. Anyways, welcome back. Today we're having another episode on kind of wardrobe and acting stuff. So today I'm basically going to look at 10 different outfits I recommend all actors should have in their closet. Let's open it up. So the first one we have on today is just a plain white t-shirt. If you watched my self-tape video about 2 weeks ago, you'll know that I wore this because I didn't really have anything else that I really knew that I wanted to wear. So that's where the plain white t-shirt comes in. It's a very, very good go-to option when you're not really very clear, or maybe you don't have an outfit that matches a certain type of role. It's really easy to just kind of like pop this on and either audition for, like a singing role or a serious role, a comedic role. It's a very great neutral base to have that is so neutral that, it won't really swing the director seeing you one way or the other. It'll mostly be dependent on your performance. But anyways, I just want to show the white t-shirt, a very good option, definitely have it. Okay, so this one is a bit more comedic in nature. This one I would describe personally as being a bit more of the stoner type vibes, where it's just very baggy, it's very loose fitting. Like a hoodie tends to be like a very good, like kind of stoner outfit, just something you'd see somebody longboard on the street on with shorts. It's just kind of that vibe, not really concerned about the aesthetic of the clothes, just kind of wearing whatever. This one kind of says like chill, laid back, doesn't really concern themselves with a lot of different things. And that's what I found. I found that before, whenever I played some of those like stoner type of roles, it tends to be kind of like, low effort, baggy clothes. All right, next up is what I would describe as the sporty wear. Now, I personally don't normally work out in these kind of clothes. I'm a big fan of working out in tank tops, something that's just like a bit more free. I just like having, I don't know, just a bit more space for my body to breathe, I guess. But from what I've noticed in both auditions and in roles, I guess they're not really the biggest fan of tank tops, directors, and a lot of them. It was kind of funny. The last role I did where I needed to do a bunch of physical activity, I brought a bunch of, they said, bring workout clothes, so I brought like a gigantic bag of tank tops and stuff like that, and they're like, nope, and then they had one of these type of shirts on them, and they're like, yeah, probably this. And I think it's probably smart, it's probably for the best, because I think with a tank top it might be a bit like distracting, I suppose, if there's like a lot of skin or, I don't know. I suppose that it is just like a bit easier for, this, for any particular reason. But it's regardless, it's a very good idea to have a polo shirt to do those physical activities. So, I've worn this for a role where, or rather I've worn a type of this shirt for a role where I was playing, not racquetball, where I was playing racquetball. I've also worn this when I was doing an audition for one of those pain reliever videos, like an Advil or something like that. This one's a very good outfit to have for just general physical activity. This is so difficult trying to make sure that my head isn't popping out of the frame. So right here we have is a flannel shirt. Flannel shirts are really good for kind of just those very modest, very humble kind of characters. Just very blue collar kind of positions where you might be more expected to be able to work with your hands and have a certain energy about you, like like a country boy kind of vibe. I used this last week for a commercial where I had to, where I was in like coveralls and I was trying to fix a piping issue in like my house, I find this just generally useful for those kind of roles. So, if you look at this and you think, oh, that guy looks like a lumberjack, good, that's very good. The idea is that like with this, you want to look like a mechanic or a plumber or a lumberjack, somebody who would work with their hands and look confident in doing so. So that is definitely what this flannel is supposed to say with that. Okay, this one we have here is a basic white button-up t-shirt. This one is basically for just any event that you might see somebody with a button-up t-shirt. So, this would either be in like a background if you're at a funeral or a church, or maybe this is somebody who's working in like an office. Me personally, when I've used this for roles where I was just a mid-20s, early 30s kind of just working person, just like a young professional. I've also used it to show kind of, new products. So, for instance, about a month ago, it was very embarrassing, just because I got a notification from a friend asking if I could participate in one of their videos, and I was like, absolutely, I'd love to. And then he said, great, we need like a video, submission from you to show you confidently delivering this very, ad, kind of delivery for the product. And I was like, okay, great. And then I totally forgot about it until like the day right before, and it was quite literally in like the middle of the night. I think it was maybe like 10:30 at night, where I was like, shoot. So I literally had to dress up in this at 10:30 on a Sunday. I was in my kitchen, and I was just like, oh yes, this new coffee machine has so many settings, and you can set it for this. You can do overnight grinding. Isn't that amazing? It was obviously more polished than that, but that kind of vibe where you're like, oh, look at this product. Isn't it amazing? So somebody you would see in like a kitchen, even though realistically I don't know how many people you see dressed up like this in a kitchen, but like whatever. Regardless, very good for any number of roles. Also the same thing in real life. You would wear this to church, you would wear this to a funeral, you would wear this to work. It's just very, very functional, especially when it comes to using this as a base to put on different jackets. So, I've also done it where I've worn this and then I wore a suit jacket to look really formal, or I wore a suit jacket with a tie, so I was wearing a tux, or I was wearing like this really crazy, colorful outfit for like this really cheesy ad, but yeah, very good ad. Okay, this is a shirt that's actually been quite popular and quite successful in the time that I've had it and used it. This I would describe as kind of a party shirt slash a kind of more of a trendy, fashionable kind of shirt. So I've used it in quite a few. I guess it looks nice. I mean, I do use it in my real life as well. I just didn't think it would be so common in my acting career as well. The ones I've used this, so I've used this for a party kind of person, and I've also used this for a, kind of like a bit more of like a well-dressed kind of lad. Somebody who might put a bit more effort into their outfits. So this one's also really good for just, it really depends on like the vibe you're looking for as well. So, when you're looking for mid-20s, maybe you want mid-20s who's a bit more fashion oriented, mid-20s who's just a bit more laid back. So this one's definitely mid-20s fashion oriented. So it's worked out pretty well. So normally if it's a role where I have to be somebody who's a bit more, I'll say, flirtatious, a bit more outgoing, a bit more Rizzler-like, I'll probably wear this. This one's definitely supposed to be aiming for the more kind of charming kind of vibe, the more flirty kind of vibe. So that is this shirt. So I guess get yourself a flirty, confident party-goer person shirt. Yeah. Okay, this one I would say is a bit more of that casual student, maybe younger student kind of vibe. So, if the white t-shirt is mid to late 20s, early 30s, I would describe this as very youthful, as very like, early university, early 20s kind of vibe. So, something that you would expect an intern to wear, something you would expect a young student to wear. That's just kind of the vibe of this outfit specifically. It is just like a very good go-to outfit for when you want somebody who's very friendly, somebody who's very approachable. And I guess the idea of this is very like semi-casual, because I think sometimes a white t-shirt with dress pants can be just a bit too formal, but this one with some nice pants, like not dress pants, but like just some nice proper looking pants, and maybe even some jeans, can also be a bit more of that casual vibes where it's still professional, but it's still quite casual at the same time. So that's the one I definitely use this for. In thinking about it, I normally use this for I guess those things where I'm a student, or I'm trying to really portray the fact that like I'm young. And I guess this is also kind of like wholesome vibes. It's like a very thick Mister Rogers kind of sweater. I only say that because the last time I used this was for, a little online advertisement where, the idea was that like I had some sort of illness and I was getting connected to a doctor. This, I guess, captured that vibe of somebody who's just very, very like friendly, very happy, who can maybe be a bit vulnerable as well. Somebody who you can trust, somebody who you look at and you say, oh, you know what, that's a good chap. I hope he's well in life. But that's just kind of the vibe. So definitely a lot more of that youthful energy in this one. Okay, so for this one is what I would describe as kind of more mature law enforcement kind of vibe. So this one is the most common outfit that I'll wear if I'm auditioning for a police officer kind of role. Specifically like a few months ago, that's exactly what I was doing. I was going in for a reading, and the role said police officer, so I wore this as that. I felt as though that kind of really captured the vibe of it. And I also tried to wear it during things like script readings when we were actually like going through the process of it. I didn't end up wearing it on set itself. They had a uniform for me. So that's the thing, is a lot of these outfits are mostly focused on capturing the vibe of these things ahead of your audition. Because more often than not, they'll probably either tell you, yep, that was great, wear that again, or they'll say, hey, bring something just like that, show me what you have. Or they'll say, hey, so like, great, but we have something that we want you to wear specifically. So this is one of those cases. So, I wear this if I want to look, a bit more mature, a bit more like forward, a bit more serious, basically. So, I've worn this when I was auditioning for police officers. I had a play a couple months ago where when I auditioned for it, I wore this because I really wanted to convey seriousness as the role said officer. Not like a modern day police officer, but like a Regency era officer. And because I was like, oh, what do I wear for like a Jane Austen kind of role? I didn't know, so I just wore this so I could capture the vibe of somebody who's kind of in control of the situations. The idea is that you want to convey that vibe, and I think this conveys that quite well. So this one, I will be fully honest when I say that I have not worn this quite as often as I've worn the other ones, but I kind of wear this as maybe like more of like the frat kind of guy, maybe the more formal sports. So, if my outfit previous was for things like, tennis or running or any of those things, this one I'd say screams a bit more golf, I guess. So yeah, just kind of like those golf vibes, those very like country club vibes, I would say. So this one I would wear if I wanted to convey that I was, maybe a bit like casual sports, but at the same time a bit more snooty, I suppose. It's like, and I think it helps because with the way the collar zippers up all the way, it naturally makes me, put my chin forward. And that's the other key thing about wardrobe, is it really changes the way you carry yourself. So, the more kind of little cheat codes, little buffs you can give yourself to more easily slip into the vibe of a character, then awesome. So, this one really helps me slip into a vibe of somebody who's a bit more overconfident, somebody who's a bit more somebody who might be a bit more entitled, somebody who's expecting more from people, just based on like ego. So this one I definitely wear if I want to be kind of like that frat douche kind of vibes. But yeah. Okay, so the last one I'm going to use here is kind of like a cheat, just because I didn't realize that I did not have 10 specific outfits that I had, or at least, I didn't have 10 that I could instantly recall off the top of my head. So this last entry, I will simply just call it the power of jackets. So I think that, if you have like a normal base outfit, I think that jackets will be really valuable to accentuate one vibe or another. So, in my personal experience, I use jackets to age myself up. So, this isn't really an issue nowadays, but in the earlier the earlier years of my acting career, because I was so baby-faced and I was so young, I needed any kind of tip I could use to make myself look a bit older. So one of the tips that I used was kind of wearing these heavier jackets. These heavier jackets, I think it just kind of makes you look a bit more put together, a bit more mature. So, when I was, say, like 21, 22, 23 kind of vibes, I would normally put this on so I can look a bit more like 27, 28, 29. If that kind of makes sense, I swear, like it actually did work quite a few times, where it was a good medium, or like a good, it was a good little way to make myself look a bit older. So here's like another jacket that I have. And yeah, what do you think? I feel like these just naturally make people look a bit older, especially when you're going for that more vintage kind of look. So this one's obviously like a brown leather jacket that you would see in movies from like the 70s or 80s. It's a good way to kind of convey a bit more age, even if facially speaking you might look a bit young, because they do specify a lot of times on the listings what kind of age groups that they're looking for, the demographics. So that being said, they won't check your ID. And people play different ages all the time. I already put this one on, but I'll just put it on anyways. But I do think that jackets are a really great way, depending on which ones you wear, to kind of age yourself up or down. The same way it works with something like a hoodie, where if you wear a hoodie, you can maybe make yourself look a bit younger. So that's basically about it. So the last entry goes to jackets for the supplementary vibes that they provide you. Okay, that was weird. Sorry, I noticed that my camera does this weird thing where if I'm smiling, it will take a bunch of these still photos. It's really weird because I tried to shoot the thumbnail for the video. And I was holding up my clothes, and I was just oh, maybe I want more of a neutral face, or maybe a bit more of a quirky face, but it didn't work until it's doing the same thing again. Anyways, regardless, that was my 10 outfits that I find myself using the most in my acting career. Now, that being said, those aren't the only 10 ones that I've ever used. If I can very quickly tell you the actual process of choosing wardrobe for, a role, it's quite common for a director to just call you in advance, or to text you in advance. It's very, very, because they need to know if they themselves need to go out and get you a new uniform or a new piece of clothing. So it is very common for directors or producers to send you an email or a text message in advance saying, "Hey, Ryan, we're just wondering, what kind of clothes do you have? Can you send us anything that's kind of this vibe?" And very, very common, they will send you photos or a listing of clothes that they want, and then you will send them to them, and then they will kind of see, they'll circle it on the image. They'll say, "Bring this one, bring this one, bring this one." So very, very often, it happened to me last weekend. I literally just brought an entire suitcase of clothes. You don't always have to do that. Not everybody does. I'd like to, just because I like to provide people with a lot of options. But yeah, that is basically the process of wardrobe. It's something that is both more complicated than you might think it is, and at the same time less complicated. I don't know. I don't really know how to describe it, but that is how I kind of interact with my clothes when it comes to acting. But that's about it. If there's certain outfits that you think are a must-have in your closet as an actor, please let me know. I'm genuinely very curious, and if there's a specific role that you're curious what I would wear for it, let me know in the comment section down below. I will be more than ready to answer it. Anyways, I want to say thank you again for checking out this video. I do not know what next week's will be about. Honestly, I might kind of jump back on some other items, some non-acting related items, so if you'd be okay with that, please let me know, and I'll try my best to keep the content going. Alright, well thank you very much, and you have an amazing day.